If you've never once in your entire life had an encounter with a freeloader, then lucky you. But chances are you probably have. You just didn't keep them around you long enough to diagnose them, okay? So first of all, who is a freeloader? Well, according to all definitions, a freeloader is someone who takes advantage of your generosity and might even depend on you for support without feeling any obligation to pay you back or to do anything in return for you, okay? They're even very good at missing the clues you might be giving them that you're onto them, all right? All they do is take, and take, but they never really give you anything back in return. And if they do give, there'll always be strings attached somehow. And something will just never seem to be right about it, okay? Now, some hardcore freeloaders even have a sense of entitlement towards your generosity. And they may play it down every time you bring it up because they're your family member, your friend, your neighbor, or even your good old spouse. Got a frog in my throat again. Yes, your spouse could be a freeloader. And God in heaven help you if you have to deal with a freeloading spouse, all right? I just had to put that one in, all right? You're married to them, so it's a long-term, one-way ride all the way to Freeloaders Town. Hello again and welcome to Insights with Cheapo. Today's topic is going to be a lighthearted and a short one. I'd like to share my 2 cents with you on how to graciously and patiently stop enabling a person who's taking your generosity for granted. You see, you must know when helping becomes enabling because the former can slowly cross over into the latter, and if you're not observant, it'll happen to you every time, okay? There is a difference between the two, all right? Now, enabling starts when the more you do for them, the less they do for themselves, simply because you've unwittingly made yourself their unworthy financial savior. You know, it doesn't take much to put your foot down and refuse to continue allowing them take advantage of your kind-hearted nature like that. Because by now, I'm sure if you're already experiencing this, you must be fed up of it and are thinking of cutting them loose already. So today, I'm going to discuss the freeloaders' ways, and afterwards, I'll share with you some boundary setting steps to take. Okay? If you're ready, let's go there. With a work colleague, I eavesdropped on a conversation a group of young men were having about their friend who had stepped out to ease himself. Now, basically, they were gossiping about this friend of theirs. You see, I told you in one of my videos that men gossip, didn't I? Well, that was proof for me that day. Anyway, these ones were going so hard on their friend, who from all indications was a frequent bill dodger. And he never picked up the tabs whenever they went out. All right. So as I was listening, I was smiling to myself at first, but I couldn't help but start laughing aloud after a while of constraining myself. And I think they must have noticed because one of them turned and looked in our direction. And at that point, my colleague, who was now getting really uncomfortable and embarrassed, she had to drag me and my eavesdropping behind out of that cafe before I made a total fool of myself. But seriously, it was so hilarious listening to them complaining about this friend of theirs who apparently had conveniently forgotten his wallet at home again for the 3rd time that week. And again, had only remembered after he had finished his meal. So his friends were now trying to figure out how to tell him that they wouldn't be able to cover his meal this time again, especially since he hadn't bothered to pay back all the other times they covered for him. They also started counting how many times he had ever really contributed to any outings they'd planned in the past, and how many times his little contributions, when he did contribute, would end up going back to him indirectly, as he would surely never have enough money to pay for his drink or meal during the outing. Seriously, I just kept laughing. I mean, thinking about it now, dude was quite shameless to say the least, you know. And the funny part of their stories about him were actually the excuses, I remember. He came up with so many excuses, they said, just to garner sympathy and evade from paying for himself every time. And from what I could understand, he wasn't a charity case either, you know. It wasn't as if he was struggling financially or anything, because he always had like new shirts and shoes anytime they would meet up to hit the town, according to their stories. And he went on expensive holidays, I think they said, with his family all the time. Can you imagine? I mean, he had all that and he was still, oh my goodness. Anyway, so with all of that at the back of their minds, they were now so fed up that they were probably not going to put up with his shenanigans any longer. And they intended not to let him get away with it again today, just to save face at that cafe where they were regulars, all right? Now, I think one of them, who'd apparently had a spat about it with him a while back, blamed the others for continuing to enable their friend's behavior, which was, according to him, why this friend of theirs now had this sense of entitlement and was always trying to take the cheap way out due to their long-standing relationship with each other. Okay, now, anyway, on my way back to the office after I'd recovered from laughing, of course, I really love laughing, I won't lie to you. I just knew I had to do a video on what I had just witnessed, because I think all of us know or have known a few freeloaders in our lifetime. And so everything those young men were saying and feeling so bitter about resonates well with us. I believe that, okay? You see, nothing kills a good friendship like a friend who consistently doesn't pay their share, or one who always tries to dodge the check whenever you go out with them or you all go out as a group, or one who never ever picks up the tab, nor do they protest when you offer to pick it up again, although it was you who paid the last time you were both out, or even one who pressures or tries to emotionally manipulate you into doing things for them all the time. Now, as a Christian, okay, I'm bringing in the Christian angle. I know the Bible tells us not to be weary in well-doing, okay? But how do you strike the balance between helping people and not helping them, you know, especially people who are needy all the time? Because listen, it can be draining and it can put a strain on any relationship after a while. If one person starts to feel that the other is just dumping all their burdens on them all the time. Now, I can understand that a friend can be broke or in need at times. Hey, it happens to the best of us, okay? All right? I'm not going to knock on that one. And sometimes as well, in the case of our finances, we just don't want to waste money because we're on a tight budget, right? And so we're trying not to spend carelessly if we can help it, okay? But what I don't entirely agree with is when the other person is not spending their money when you're out together, for example, yeah? But they're saving it and expecting you to always foot the bill for them whenever you all decide to meet up for a night out. Or another example, they call on you all the time to help them fix one thing or the other over at their house, or they ask you to help them do something somewhere, or help them buy something. And of course, you know, they'll never pay you back. But that's beside the point, okay? The point here is this. Freeloaders depend on you for support all the time without intending to pay back, you know, without reciprocating. And I'm talking about the kind here now, okay? Let's talk about a different kind. These are the kind of freeloaders who don't really need to freeload at all, all right? I mean, come on, you don't need to, but you're doing it. How is that even acceptable behavior for a respectable person with integrity? Now, I have colleagues who, when we go out in a group for a meal, they prefer to pay only for what they've consumed, down to the penny, all right? Even when the group wants to split the check evenly, they still want to, you know, do their own thing. Now, that's understandable because they have a budget and they want to stick to it, especially as they haven't ordered any costly dishes and drinks, but have kept, you know, within their choice of meal, kept the choice of meal within their budget, all right? So as much as that may not sit very well with the rest of the group, we all have to respect their decision, okay? Now, the fact is this: freeloading off of people in any kind of constellation is a terribly irritating behavior that stems from three character traits I've identified, and they are stinginess, selfishness, and laziness. And the three of them combined as one give birth to what we call a freeloader nowadays. However, a freeloader may not have all three traits, okay, but may have just one or two of these traits and still be a freeloader. Okay, now there's no exhaustive list on how to identify a freeloader. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to cover all the many signs to watch out for, and this is because, of course, they come up with so many crafty ways to evade being identified. Although there are also some who don't even really care, and they're quite shameless about being freeloaders, and so they have accepted their freeloading lifestyle as their norm. Now, the signs that let you know that you're dealing with a chronic freeloader, some signs that I've identified are things like them always forgetting their wallet at home, borrowing from you and never paying back, or they're always a guest at your home but they never host or invite others back, as it would of course cost them money, and God forbid that they should spend their money on you. Oh, and another reason, why this one is good, why they wouldn't invite you to theirs is that they don't want you to see inside their house, because inside is the truth that they don't want you to see. Imagine this, because inside is all the expensive and the state-of-the-art electronics and the latest gadgets that just would not justify why they keep hitting you for money or not paying for themselves whenever you both go out. Oh yeah, think about it. Some of them, that's how they are. You see, freeloaders are also full of promises, but nothing concrete ever comes from it, okay? And if they have to contribute towards anything like everyone else is doing, it will always be the cheapest brand or a small quantity, and they will never make anything extra or add anything extra, okay? Another thing is, if you offer to go out of your way to pick them up for work, for example, and drop them back home afterwards, guess what? They'll never offer any petrol contribution. Okay, and listen, I know I'm not being petty here, okay? Because these days, it's pretty normal for people to offer to contribute for petrol. Because if someone is doing you that kind of favor, especially if you don't live just around the corner, come on, you don't live around the corner from them, the least you can do is offer them petrol money, which they may or may not accept, but at least give them the chance to say no and refuse it, and, by making the offer. So just make the offer first. If you're doing that, stop it now. All right. Okay. The list is endless. There are many examples of how freeloaders operate. And frankly speaking, some are quite shocking too. When you hear the kind of people who do it, people who don't really need to, you'd be really surprised, because many, for example, are business professionals who may even earn more than you and I do, but they would rather take money from you than spend theirs. Wow. Just wow. And that's the miserly part of freeloaders I forgot to mention earlier. Anyway, how do we set boundaries? Okay, moving on. How to set boundaries, to stop this kind of behavior from affecting us? Now, first of all, I'd suggest letting them know that you can no longer lend money to them if they're not going to pay back all they've borrowed from you in the past. Short and simple, all right? Tell them that you are now on to them and you find it very unfair and disgusting. Make sure you say disgusting. That they keep putting you in a position where you have to be a savior to them all the time. And it's beginning to feel like you're being taken advantage of, okay? And if you're certain you are dealing with one who actually has more money than you do, tell them that you insist they pay back all you've spent on them if the relationship with you is of any value to them. Because you see, a friend who keeps taking and never giving back is only telling you that they see you as nothing but their bank. And if they try to invoke guilt in you for telling them the truth by telling them off, because some people need telling off, please understand that it's just another of their attempts to manipulate your behavior to, do what they want, okay? So ignore them and do the needful, okay? And if they're also the type that have that annoying sense of entitlement and feel you owe it to them, by reason of being a family member or a good friend, or by having a relationship with them, and therefore you have no right to set any limits? Well, listen, you have to reset their brain on that notion, and fast too, okay? Because you don't owe them anything. And in cases like that, being a bit harsh in your approach of the subject matter is even allowed, all right? You see, the truth is there's no particular best method one can give a person on how to deal with a freeloader, as the scenarios behind each experience with them are not always the same, all right? But the bottom line is you need to put a stop to their exploitations of your kindness and finances once and for all, okay? Because despite your history or relationship with them, believe it or not, they do not care about your feelings, and they will not stop if you don't stop them now or soon. They are users and master manipulators at the end of the day, and they just don't respect your well-being, okay? I'm just going to put it that way. No, they don't, all right? They only respect theirs, and so you don't have to avoid that conflict or guilt of refusing to enable or indulge them any further than you already have, all right? It's time to pull back your line and let them sink or swim on their own before you reach your breaking point and react in a way that would be worse than if you had simply said no to them from the beginning. Besides, you're actually doing them a favor in the long run when you think about it, because you're helping them become better persons, you know? And you're doing this by teaching them to learn to paddle their own canoe in life and not always expect someone to do it for them when God has already blessed them and equipped them with the ability to look after themselves. And if they're true friends, they'll thank you later for saving them from a long-term bad reputation, if it isn't already in them. You know, some people have a reputation stuck on them. Everywhere they go, it just goes with them, okay? So let me end from a scriptural angle. You see, God knows how we are, every single one of us, and He keeps account of everything we do. He knows those who are generous and those who are not. And He also knows those who are freeloading as well, okay? Now, the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6 reminds us that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Basically, everything we keep doing to or for others is what we'll get back in return sooner or later. Let's think about that from now on, okay? And may God help us all become better and do better. So thank you so much for watching today, and I hope this video has helped you. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please leave a comment for me, like the video, and don't forget to subscribe and then click on the bell symbol down there so you can get a notification each time I upload a new video. Now have a wonderful day, stay amazing, and remember, it's good to say yes, but it's also fine to say no. God bless you.